There seems to be no end in sight to the nightmare of wildfires. A huge wildfire in northern Canada is creeping closer to the capital of the Northwest Territories and could reach the outskirts of Yellowknife by the weekend unless it rains. That's what the territorial government has said. Canada is enduring its worst ever wildfire season with more than 1,000 active fires burning across the country, including 230 in the Northwest Territories. Thousands of residents of the sparsely populated territory have been forced to evacuate from smaller communities, and the hamlet of Enterprise near the Alberta border was almost entirely destroyed by a blaze that swept through on Sunday. Northwest Territories Premier Caroline Cochrane said some Yellowknife residents were preemptively leaving the city but urged people to remain calm and warned that highways could close suddenly because of the risk of fire. She said, "I have never seen so many vehicles leaving town. There are all kinds of rumors out there, but be ready and evacuate if necessary. Stay calm, do not panic." Now, Yellowknife has a population of around 20,000 people and lies 400 kilometers south of the Arctic Circle. A 163,000 hectare wildfire is currently 17 kilometers from this town and would likely reach Highway 3, the only highway connecting the city to the rest of Canada, sometime today. Some areas along the highway have already been ordered to evacuate. The Northwest Territories have declared a state of emergency, and the Canadian military has been mobilized to help tackle the blazes and airlift some residents to safety. The declaration gives authorities additional powers to respond to an emergency and underscores unparalleled damage that's been wrought by blazes this year. The Canadian government has said it has approved federal assistance to combat the wildfires and deployed armed forces to help with firefighting efforts in the area. The city of Yellowknife has also declared a state of local emergency to brace for potential risks from nearby wildfires. Now, Northwest Territories Premier spoke to the Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau about this wildfire situation on Wednesday. Trudeau reaffirmed the federal government's ongoing commitment to help the territory. Western Canada is enduring a heat wave that saw 19 daily heat records broken on Tuesday and is fueling hundreds of out-of-control wildfires. In the Pacific province of British Columbia, around 80 people were forced to shelter in place in a mountain guest house after their only way out was cut off by a rapidly expanding blaze. The stranded people, including lodge guests and campers from nearby campgrounds, sheltered overnight at the Cathedral Lakes Lodge near Keremios in the south of the province before being brought down the mountain in vehicles. Fires have engulfed parts of nearly all 13 Canadian provinces and territories this year, forcing home evacuations, disrupting oil and gas production, and drawing in federal as well as international firefighting resources. All right, to understand this situation better, let's now go back to Shri, who is live with us from Washington, D.C. Shri, I'm no expert on climate change, but you know, the number of shows that we have done to discuss the havoc that it is causing across the globe in just the last few weeks, the kind of extreme weather events that different parts of the globe have witnessed seem to be unprecedented at so many levels. How bad is the situation in Canada? Because clearly, in country after country, the nightmare of wildfires is refusing to end. I mean, for days now, we've been talking about the Maui wildfires in the Hawaii islands in the United States, and now we're talking about the situation that Canada is currently facing.
True. So Neha, let's contextualize this wildfire in Canada. So Canada is the world's second largest country by area after Russia, and yet its population is only 38 million, which is probably less than Bombay and Delhi put together. So, you know, almost half of the country is covered by forests. And the fires that often break out, they're breaking out in remote areas with no access to these fires. And they don't even have infrastructure, whether it's firefighting machines or firefighters, to put these fires out. In fact, Canada has to basically pick and choose its firefighting. It has to decide which area it's going to allow to burn down and which area is going to try and put the fire out. and often the decision is made in favor of human lives. So any area where there's human habitation, there are people living in those areas. That's where the energy is focused. Even in this case of a Yellowknife, there are only 20,000 people who live in that area, but the government's resources are directed towards that, because even one life, if it's going to be affected by fire, must be saved. So that's the context, Neha. It's a vast country, and fires happen routinely. In fact, weather experts say that these fires are nature's way of balancing and replenishing the forest ecosystem. When fire happens and forest and trees burn down, they replenish the soil, which then leads to stronger growth and better growth of vegetation, including trees. But what is happening because of the climate change and global warming, Neha, is that these fires are becoming more frequent and more intense. For example, the fires that happened in Canada in July, and we saw the impact in US as well, especially in the New York northeastern area of US, where cities were covered for days with smoke and haze. So these fires consumed 17 times more forest than they otherwise would if global warming and climate change were not involved. So the fact that we have drier weather, that we have hurricanes happening and winds being carrying these fires and spreading them faster. So these are the factors, the environmental factors, which are making what is supposed to be a natural phenomenon of wildfires, they're making it worse, Neha. And that's something the world has to contend with. And there are no easy answers. How do you put or control such fires, Neha? That's the unfortunate reality at this point.
Absolutely. While there are no easy answers, but the reality also is that for all the claims governments around the world make, very little has really changed on the ground in terms of climate change and the fight against climate change still not being a big enough priority for governments anywhere in the world, it would seem.